Well, thank you everybody for coming out today. Again, a good day to talk about stormwater, one of the wetter summers on record. I thought we'd go over SWIMI, the Sustainable Water Management Initiative, a little bit today, and then get into kind of a decision matrix discussion on stormwater.
On a spring morning in central Massachusetts, there's a discussion underway about how the town of Hopkinton will comply with new state rules to better manage water resources.
So SWIMI stands for the Sustainable Water Management Initiative, and it came about because Massachusetts is blessed with a lot of rainfall. We get about 44 inches a year, and it's spread out evenly throughout the state, so that's an excellent starting point. But despite all that rainfall, we actually have streams and rivers in some parts of Massachusetts that are either dry up in the summertime particularly, and that don't provide the sort of habitat value and human recreational value. And part of the reason is because we're taking a lot of water out during critical time periods for things like watering lawns and washing cars, all of which are important. But we haven't really taken into account the impacts that all of those water withdrawals have on habitat and other human uses of these rivers and streams. So what SWIMI is all about is to use science as a guidepost for analyzing the impacts of these withdrawals, and a new set of regulations which will encourage communities to do what they can to conserve water and do what they can to put water back in when they take it out.
Hopkinton is a quiet town, best known as the start of the famed Boston Marathon. But like many communities along the Route 495 corridor, Hopkinton's rural character is changing with the pressure of new residential and commercial growth. The community sits high on the landscape and straddles three watersheds. Any water that falls in town flows either to the Blackstone, Concord, or Charles River. And while there's enough water now for the new growth in town, Hopkinton is nearing the withdrawal limits it is allowed through the state's Water Management Act. When its permits come up for renewal in 2016, the town will have to show that requests for more water are offset by new efforts to conserve it.
The SWIMI rules don't prevent a community from getting more water. What they do say is if you're getting more water, and particularly if you're in an area which is already losing a lot of water and it's already in sort of a danger zone because so much water is being taken out, that you have to try to come up with cost-effective ways of mitigating that impact. And one of the ways that a growing community can do that is when it does have new growth coming in and new revenue, that creates the opportunity for that town to be able to invest in some of the things like leak detection and conservation practices and stormwater management.
Today's meeting is one in which we'd like to discuss some of the issues that have been raised in the past. And that is how, at the town level, do you implement improvements in stormwater and do it fairly? How hard would it be to do it on a residential basis? How hard would it be to do it on a commercial and industrial basis? And how hard would it be to do it just on municipally owned properties?
A group of stakeholders, including Hopkinton's Land Use Planning Director, Conservation Officer, Town Engineer, and Planning Board Chair, are exploring a range of options for how they can meet the SWIMI guidelines by directing more of the town's stormwater runoff back into the ground instead of letting it run off into local streams. They started by using powerful GIS tools to find where the best recharge sites would be. By combining different maps, such as soils, wetlands, and hydrology, they identified the most suitable sites. Armed with this valuable information, they can now assess the feasibility of new stormwater management rules.
Today's goal is to kind of walk through that and come up with a ranking of an approach for Hopkinton to approach stormwater recharge under the SWIMI framework.
They're using a matrix to evaluate the relative costs and benefits of recharging stormwater on town-owned property versus existing residential sites.
We think that there wouldn't be very much public information needed, so that scores out fairly high. Let's say there's a 9 there. There wouldn't be a necessity for bylaw revisions under your subdivision rules and regulations, so that would be very easy or least difficult, so that would be a 10. So let's flip this conversation to residential existing, and you'll see the difficulty or the variety here. If we had existing residential properties and you said, I want you to modify how you're handling stormwater on your existing site, how hard do you think that would be to implement? And if you went through these categories, I think you can score and rank it. For example, you probably have to do quite a bit of public information. So that would be a 1. It would be difficult. Okay. Bylaw revisions, you tell me.
The group works through the matrix and comes up with some revealing conclusions.
What you see is we get a total point score of 27 as opposed to a total point score of 66. Now, high points win here. So just comparing doing stormwater on the municipal-owned sites with municipal infrastructure and municipal funding is ranking out higher than trying to implement it on a house level.
As the SWIMI rules go into effect, the discussions going on in Hopkinton will be echoed in cities and towns across Massachusetts.
I do want to emphasize to communities, we're not expecting them to go it alone and figure this whole thing out for themselves. We're going to be providing a whole menu of options which will help communities look at the scope of things that they can do. We're going to provide technical assistance to communities to help them select from those options. We have a capital grants program which we'll be providing to communities to help subsidize some of the cost. We also have a state revolving fund, which is a very large and well-capitalized low-interest loan program.
Biggest thing I took out of it was the town's going to have to decide if they want to withdraw more water. They would have to incorporate some of the initiatives that were discussed during the meeting.
There's, I think, incremental changes to the way we approach water management throughout everything that we do that are probably low-cost approaches. You know, the way we're making curbs, the way we're draining parking lots, you know, how we're making, you know, instead of having elevated islands, we'd have sunk islands and drain our parking lots into them. It's a change in design philosophy that somewhere has to be undertaken. And that change in design philosophy generally only occurs when there's a bar set by regulatory process, whether it's local or state. And so saying that this is the goal and this is what we're regulating towards changes that design thinking and then changes the shape, how we're shaping what we're doing.
Through the Sustainable Water Management Initiative, Massachusetts is taking the lead toward wiser use of its water resources.
The best outcomes would be that we don't see our streams and rivers drying up. We have healthy streams, healthy rivers, healthy aquatic habitat that people can use and enjoy. We have communities using smart and cost-effective approaches to water conservation and recharge. And we put Massachusetts on a long-term sustainable path where the water that we are blessed with, the natural rainfall, is always there for us for a wide variety of human needs and ecosystem needs.